Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled you're here. And I have a real treat for you guys today. I'm interviewing my friend Michelle Bosch. Now, Michelle, I met Michelle's husband Jack at a high-level mastermind that we both attended. Gosh, it's been 2 or 3 years ago. And now they're both members of my multifamily mastermind, my multifamily boardroom mastermind, and got to know her in Las Vegas. But the reason I'm having Michelle on the show is, well, first of all, you know, they're rapidly approaching 400 doors. When they close on what they have under contract right now, they'll be at 400 doors and over $40 million in assets. But, you know, she and Jack have bought and sold over 4,000 pieces of real estate. They're excellent in the land flipping business. In fact, Jack teaches that. They both do, actually. But the reason I wanted to have Michelle on the show is because she just started her own podcast called In Flow. And what I love about it, it's about inspiring women through the world of passive cash flow and real estate. It's to empower women. So Michelle, I'm so thrilled you're on the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. You know, first off, I'm very excited to be here and, you know, be a voice and a face for a lot of other ladies out there. So thank you.
You bet. No, absolutely. So, you know, before we dig into what you're up to now, let's talk about the real estate a little bit. I know, you know, you guys have a unique story. And so let's talk about your history in this exciting field. You know, I know I think you started with houses or you started with land. I don't remember which, but take us through this progression and how now you're rapidly approaching $40 million in multifamily.
Okay, so I will start actually at the beginning then.
Okay.
And that is by saying that I am a first-generation immigrant here into the U.S. I immigrated into the U.S. in 1995 from Honduras. And before emigrating here, you know, my father had passed away when I was very young. And he, before passing, had made an amazing decision. And that decision was to invest in a piece of property, commercial property back home. And in that purchase, I mean, you talk about passive cash flow, that purchase long after he was gone, was able to put me through, you know, private school back home, through university here in the US. It is still part of the family. It will take, you know, care of my mother into her old age. And if it stays in the family, you know, probably even my daughter will see the fruits of that. Wow. And so that's kind of how I first, you know, came into real estate, from that one decision that my father made. And that, that event of his loss was bittersweet, because it has been a loss in both of my mother's and my life as big as the sky. But at the same time, you know, he has been there for us all along the way. So that's what, you know, passive cash flow can do. So let's go back to the story. I come to the US, 1995. I meet this phenomenal man in university that, you know, is now my husband, Jack Bosch. He's also an immigrant from Germany. We fall in love. We decide to stay here, get jobs. We absolutely hate our jobs, but we have to keep them for some time because our green card and, you know, immigration status depends on them. So, but on the side, we start getting educated a little bit more on how real estate works. And we decided that, you know, we didn't want to start with something as difficult as, you know, going out there and estimating, you know, repairs on houses and so on and so forth. So we kind of stumbled into land. And so very humble beginnings. We started flipping land, and the first year, I think we flipped like 30 properties. And then the second year, 60 properties. And then by that second year, you know, we had our green cards, and it was a liability for us to continue keeping our jobs. And so we started to, you know, go all out on the land and basically really ramp that up and scale to the point where we were doing 250 properties, you know, selling in a quarter, about 1,000 in a year. And so we were able to do that with land. However, that is one-time cash. Every time you flip a piece of land, you know, you're exchanging dollars for hours. You know, it's like having a job. And even though we managed to sell that land using seller financing, you know, those notes at some point come to an end. And so back in 2009, we find ourselves sitting on tremendous amounts of liquidity, from our land auctions. And our next thing for us was, especially because we live here in Phoenix, and Phoenix was at rock bottom prices, for sale. We went shopping and started, on our buy and hold strategy for passive cash flow long-term. Back in 2009, we were able to buy, properties for 40, 50 grand and, rent them for $900, $1,000. Nice. So it was,
so you started with single family.
Single family. Yeah. So that's how we started. And then about 3 years ago, Jack and I think it's a process of evolution of as an investor or as an entrepreneur, that you want to go and do, something, more exciting, bigger, something that could turbocharge this, this passive cash flow. Instead of looking at one house at a time or one door at a time, how can we start looking at, 100 doors at a time, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of how we started in the multifamily space, is as a result of us wanting to grow what we call our forever cash, our forever money, because it is forever money unless you decide to sell the asset,
Sure.
And so now we find ourselves in our third syndication. We're about to close right now on December 15th on our third apartment complex. And we will be almost at full circle, or full cycle on our very first deal, because we're positioning that for sale right now in the first quarter of 2019. So that's kind of like...
That one won't be forever cash. That one you're going to cash out of.
Yes, that one we will.
Here's lifetime cash flow, because I'm all about holding wherever you can. But,
yes.
But
yes. This one we can't ignore right now. The opportunity in the market, to realize, about $3 million.
Sometimes you got to take your chips off the table. I get it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. So what role have you played in this multifamily space? I know you're great with numbers, right? I mean, I think I read that you're great with the financial side.
Yes. Basically my role in the company has been more of an operational and, the process oriented one. Jack has been much more, the visionary, how I would like to call him as the accelerator versus me more the stabilizer.
Love it. Those are great analogies. And I'm going to tell you, and the guys, my listeners have heard this many times. Whenever you can combine the analytical person with the outgoing person, although you're also very outgoing as well.
Thank you.
When you match that up, it's an incredible synergy, and it's better than the sum of the parts. And so, awesome. Okay.
And so my role has been to not just take care of cash and maximize cash and forecast, cash needs for our company, but also as a result of something that happened in 2011 that made me completely reevaluate how we were doing things. And that is, I have been working all my life since I can remember. Right. And back in 2011, I kind of hit a wall and I was completely burned out to the point where my health and my radiance were completely compromised. I would get up in the mornings, get my daughter ready to go to school, and I would come back, and for a period of almost 6 to 8 weeks, I would just lay there and basically only get ready when it was time to go pick her up. I was that exhausted from constantly going. And really because we had not organized our business such that where I had given an emphasis to the who. Prior to that, my emphasis had always been to become very process oriented, very linear, very generator type of energy to create results and so on and so forth. And that completely exhausted me. And so back in 2011, after having, hit that wall, I kind of reevaluated what was important and what was it that I wanted to do, with the rest of my life, and how did the business fit into that. And so I decided to put an emphasis more on the who. And when I say the who, is not just the who as in my team, which is incredibly important, but also the who in terms of clients, the who in terms of partners, of who we go into business, investors, everything. revolving around the who. And how I did that was by emphasizing something that we had never worked on, which is corporate culture and core values. And so I didn't want to have to push and grind and hustle anymore. And I wanted things to become easy and effortless. And I know that's like a paradox, especially in this world and in this industry where there's so much hustle porn around, like the grind, the hustle, and that is important and it is valid. But just as that energy is valid, the energy of ease and effortless and predictability, is also, that stabilizer versus accelerator is also valid as well. And so for the first time then in our business, I started looking at that and how could we be going away from being tugboats. If you think about a tugboat, the analogy of a tugboat, you're out there trying to bring every ship, back into shore. And it requires a lot of effort, a lot of energy. Sure. And so how can we turn ourselves to become lighthouses? Basically, a lighthouse stands its ground, its center, it, shines brightly. And in the storm, you attract team members, you attract clients, you attract, you are there centered. And so I did that through core values. And it is one of the most incredible breakthroughs and discoveries because, like I said, in the beginning of my journey, I was all about process.
Sure.
And
that's
the who, and actually the who is the one that can help you with the process. You know what I mean? So the who is at the cornerstone of everything. If you have a question about anything, more than likely a who has the answer to that question.
Okay. So interesting label. I like it. Talk to me. I want to circle back to, this core values and corporate culture. Yeah. So give me some examples of how you utilize that to make lifestyle more of a focus than the systems. Cause I know you guys travel like nobody I've ever seen. Yeah. You take your daughter and I see pictures of you guys all over the world. So you have an incredible lifestyle. So it's obvious that what you've done is working. I'm envious, frankly, sometimes when I see you guys because I'm grinding 7 days a week. And so I'm interested for my own purposes. So talk to how,
and we do that too. There's seasons for everything,
Right.
But I think it starts with you as a leader identifying, what do you stand for and what do you stand against, and those become the values that you make decisions, that you filter opportunities through, filter relationships through, filter projects, investments through. So for us, for example, one of our top core values is to be transformational. To be of utmost integrity, excellence, and transparency. And so if we can live and embody that, we attract easily the people that also resonate with those values and the partners, even like when looking at property management companies to work with right now, to help us, manage our properties. I look at whether not just if they're metric centric and they understand the cost structure of, turning a property around and turning units around, but do our values align? Because if they align, then they will be almost acting in my best interest because they are aligned. We're aligned on those things. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of how we use those. We don't necessarily, front and forward put them on our marketing, but you will get a sense even of those values even on our marketing, in both educational and investing side. You will get a sense of that on how we operate, within our team and how we report, how we talk to each other, that transparency and open communications, integrity, doing the right thing, even if it's difficult, So if you start living those, you start attracting people that have that mindset and operate like you would in certain situations.
No question. I want to say, and we'll lose all the analytical ones when I make this comment, but I really believe people vibrate at different levels, and you attract people that vibrate at your level. And we probably just lost half the audience on that, but I'm just telling you, I totally believe that.
I can regain them back, and I can regain them back by saying that what you're alluding to is that you are the average of the 5 people that you're hanging out with.
Right.
Why? Because they change you at a cellular level. You know, they change you when they change your thoughts because of the high level thought, you know, and thinking that they're at. They change your emotions, they change your chemistry, they change your physiology, you know, they change you at a cellular level. So that's basically what you're saying. So
I love that.
I hope that I regain them back.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's funny. That's funny. You went scientific on it. That's awesome. You know, and they've heard me say it a million times. You are the 5 people you hang around with. I mean, you know, that's why I created this Facebook group. I think we're up to 22,000 people now. And you know, you want to be around people that want more, that empower you, that validate you, that push you. And it's true, you know, those 5 people, you are physically like them. You are, you know, the happiness level is the same. Certainly the financial level is the same. The relationships are the same. And it truly, that's why you're right. It's at a cellular level. Love it. Yeah. So back to, we talked about
and one more thing to finish that question on the how, you know, practically does it apply. I also, the emphasis on the who is not just on core values, but also on having who's that are both stabilizers and accelerators. Why? Accelerators are the ones that are going to bring change, that are going to bring forward movement, that are going to bring innovation, creativity, you know, vision, strategy. And the stabilizers are the ones that are going to make sure that what we're doing well stays and continues to be well, you know, and they're going to bring predictability and stability. And so even like in types of investments, you know, cash sources, funding, people, marketing, processes, do you have stabilizers and do you have accelerators in those? And that's another way how, you know, I have been able to focus on the who and bring it down to the business level and to get practical results, you know?
Love it. Yeah. I call it starters and finishers, frankly. Yes. You know, it's, you know, a great example would be Silicon Valley. You know, you get these guys that are the artists, the innovators, they come up with the concept, and then, you know, the venture capital investors will bring in a C-level team to bring it home, because in any organization, you know, there are typically 3 archetypes, and sometimes people wear all these hats, but there's the artist or the innovator, the person that came up with the idea. There's the CEO, CEO is the wrong word, the entrepreneur that is the one that brings it to market, but they're the starter. But then there's the manager that's the people person, that's the stabilizer, as it were, that brings it home. And the entrepreneur is usually, you know, very often they're pushed out. You see that in some of these big silicon, you know, some of these big tech companies where the CEO gets pushed out because they really do not have the skill set to bring it home. Yeah. They can start it and get it going and hopefully continue to accelerate it but it's okay. That's awesome. So I want to circle back to what you said about culture. Now, I just want to be sure that I didn't miss anything, because I'm a big, I love creating an incredible culture in my workplaces. I was just telling on my coaching calls yesterday, I was telling people that, you know, like when they were doing that ice bucket challenge, you know, to do a team camaraderie, we actually bought a dunk tank and we filled it up with ice and water. And of course, I'm the one that's sitting on a little ledge that people get to throw a ball at and dunk into the ice water. And, you know, silly things like that we did to just, you know, we had a CFO, but they weren't financial officer; they were fun officer. Okay, so we had 2 CFOs. You know, so I like that. So I was just curious, when you said corporate culture, was it just as it relates to those values, or were there some other pieces to that?
Yes, it also relates to, you know, the 4 freedoms, you know, freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. Nice. And just like we enjoy those 4 freedoms, we want them to be able to enjoy them as well. And so, for example, we started doing something called the Dream Manager. It's something that Jack actually learned when he was at a program at MIT with the EO organization.
Oh, so yeah, it's a great organization.
We decided to bring it home here. And so we asked our team what were some of their dreams, you know, dreams that they thought they would never, you know, accomplish. And for example, one of our guys' team that has been with us almost 12 years. His biggest dream was to be able to spend his summers in Hawaii. And I'm like, absolutely, we can make that happen. You know, if we have the freedom to go and travel and do the things that we do, we want our, you know, the people working for us. And he's like our right-hand person, you know. We want him to have those freedoms as well. So we organized it such, you know, that for those 3 months, he was going to be online, you know, for a block of time where everyone knew that he was going to be available because of this 3 or 4 hour difference between Hawaii and mainland. And we made that possible. We're virtual anyways, as it is. So that, you know, that the technicalities and the logistics of that was not an issue. It was just a matter of time. You as a leader asking, you know, what is it that, you know, your employees really value? And part of that was, you know, for Alex, you know, who has been with us, like I said, 12 years, was to have the freedom to work wherever he wanted to be working. Wow. And so that's some of the things that, you know, that we do and try to bring in so that the whole goal is to have that person bring their whole selves, their entire selves to work, you know. It's not just, I love that. It's not just, you know, Alex, the, you know, tech ninja and operations ninja, but it's his entire self coming, you know, to work. And part of it is, where does he want to work, you know? And,
sure. So what were those 4 freedoms again? Time, purpose, relationships, and what was the 4th one?
Freedom of time for me is number 1, then money, then relationships, and then purpose.
Got it. Okay.
Because if you think about it, if you have the first 3, you are then in a position when you're not making decisions out of despair. And when you don't make decisions out of despair, you have the opportunity to think about, wow, and I'm going to get a little spiritual here, but why am I here? You know, why am I here? What is that dent in the universe that I'm here to, you know, to make?
Right. What you know, how are you going to be remembered? What are you going to stand for?
Exactly.
You know, all of those things. Love it. Love it. And you're absolutely right. You got the first 3, then you can focus on purpose. You have the ability. But I'm going to say this as a caveat. Those of you listening, there's no reason, even if you don't have all the money or all the time, or even the relationships that you need, there's no reason not to start weaving in some of your purpose. Maybe you want to adopt a family for the holidays, you know, and feed them. You know, there's so many things you can do that are manageable, that don't require a lot of time or a lot of money to start weaving in that purpose now. But I love the way that you described that. So let me ask you this, Michelle. Because you've got a child and beautiful young girl, if you could teach school children one thing that maybe they're not getting at school, what might that be?
For me, I definitely would be to emphasize your strength and to keep on developing your strength. I see right now in Sophia, we actually homeschooled her, Rod, for half a year in the first half of 4th grade. She's now a 5th grader. And in that half a year of homeschooling, we traveled the world, and we also hired a teacher, you know, a private tutor, to help us make sure that we were hitting all the curriculum milestones that we needed to hit. Well, we hit them in a matter of 4 months. And the advances that I could see in math, because she happens to have a gift in math.
She's a chip off the old block like you then.
Yeah, it was like I was blown away. And then we go and we get back into the system, and we get back into the system that is trying to make her have, you know, strong weaknesses and improve her reading, which we need to be reading at a certain level and be able to write at a certain level. So that is understood, but not continue grinding on and spending time on the things that you're not good at. You know, that's the whole point, I think, for us as leaders, is to find what our weaknesses are and have people complement us in those weaknesses, and us continue to, you know, foster only the strength. So that is something that I see right now, that it was like black and white from our, you know, homeschooling experience to going back into the regular school system.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I've done a driving force clip on this, and that, you know, we're taught, you know, build up your weaknesses, build up your weaknesses. And I'm going to tell you, and you guys have heard me say it before, focus on your strengths, build those up, align or hire or partner for your weaknesses, and you will get much further, much faster, because you need to be playing to your strengths. Love Absolutely. It. Absolutely love it. So let me ask you this now. if you were speaking to your 20-year-old self about the real estate, well, really about life in general, but definitely real estate as well, the real estate business, is there anything you might do differently?
I would have much quicker focused on the who, and would have much more, at a faster speed, made that front and center. But at the beginning, I was a rugged individualist. I wanted, I thought I could do it better than anyone else. And I thought through process, I can, trump having to deal with people. and the who is the most important part. And that's what's going to bring you ease and effortless.
Love it. Love it. Now, what do you think is the number one reason that people fail in this multifamily business? I've got listeners that are just getting started, haven't started yet, know they want their first property. Maybe they've got a few properties. They know they want to go bigger, but fear of failure is such a big limiting belief for many people. But drilling back to why you think people fail, and then let's talk about that fear of failure. But why do you think people actually fail in this business? You have any thoughts on that?
I do. So there's a few things, and when evaluating any investment, you cannot evaluate it only in isolation in terms of like what the numbers say, that thing is spitting out, and the potential, and but you have to look at the surroundings, as we know, market rates, and can I really optimize this property? But besides that, more macroeconomic environment, as far as what time of the cycle are we in? Is the strategy that I'm wanting to use the correct one for this, type of cycle or market that we're in? And so those are part of the things that I think reasons why people fail is that they're using the wrong strategy at the wrong time. And another thing that I want to think of is intuition. Sometimes everything checks off. Sometimes everything, like literally on paper, checks off, but we overwrite this little whisper. And I want to say that it's a whisper from God that tells you that you shouldn't do something, and you go ahead and do it anyways.
And you always regret it. You always regret it. And I will just say, you say it's a whisper from God. That's beautiful. I will say that as human beings, our brains, our subconscious brains are so powerful. We were able to discern micro little clues that our conscious brain doesn't get. And my friends, you listening, especially not just on deals, if you're going to get into a partnership or, get in bed, for lack of a better word, with someone in business, trust that, because I have neglected that, or I have not given it the energy that it's due because everything else checked off, and I've always regretted it. Your intuition is incredibly powerful. I'm really glad you brought that up. That is awesome. So
it has saved us from a lot of faux pas, and let me tell you, when I have decided to repress it, we've paid for it.
No, I will tell you, I tell the story. Tiffy and I went to dinner with this guy that I was going to hire as a COO, 120 grand a year. At the time it was a lot of money. And we always go to dinner with him, and we break bread with him, and we get a drink. And there was one little thing in the little bit of cockiness in the way he treated the waiter. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to dig in a little more. And there was one reference that he didn't want me to call. He said the guy had cancer. Well, I went ahead and called the guy, and the guy didn't have cancer. He had just stolen from the guy and didn't want me to call. And I was like,
oh my God, that saved you.
Thank God. And that was just that little twinge of intuition. But let's shift gears now. Let's talk about your podcast. So why did you start it, and what is your outcome for that podcast?
Okay. So there's two, I think, reasons. Well, the main reason is, like I said, it's a spiritual one. You start asking yourself, what am I going to leave behind? What is going to be my dent in the universe? The thing that I'm going to be doing to leave this place a better place. And it's twofold. And number one, I have been in real estate for the last 16 years, and it's been a lonely place for me in terms of every high level meeting. I have been one, maybe two women in a room. And I would like to see that change. I want to see more women, investing. And I don't want them to not invest because they don't have the knowledge. There is no lack of intellect amongst women.
No.
Perhaps there is no tradition of investing, as much, because we are in a generation of women that are very used to being producers and cash machines, and have, I know a lot of women, 7 and 8 figures, where they're the breadwinners of their businesses, but very few are actually investing and having their money work for them. And I want to see more women at the table, investing, producing passive cash flow, having their money work for them. I heard a statistic from the founder of the She Summit, Claudia Shan, and it really came like an arrow into my heart, or a punch to my gut, as a guy would say. And that is that less than 1% of all real property in the world is owned by women. Can you believe that? That is incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah. I had no idea. Wow.
And so we need to bring women in. Perhaps it's a matter of simplifying, because there is some technical language and expertise that is needed, especially in multifamily. I'm not going to lie.
Of course.
But like in anything. But and so we don't need to dumb things down. We just need to simplify them and bring women along as well.
Well, I think it's really more about the empowerment, and you're going to be a real inspiration to them. I have my friend Maureen Miles that I talk about.
Gosh, yes.
Maureen. She was at my Atlanta boot camp, and she'll be at my Tampa one here in January. And she and I both worked at UPS in a previous life, loading trucks. Now I lasted 2 weeks. She lasted like 8 years or something. And now she's, got $200 million worth of real estate, just killing it. So, and that's why, when I found out about your podcast, it really resonated with me, because you're absolutely right. There should be more women in this space. And, and I love, and that's why I wanted to have you on here and give you a shout out. So it's called Inflow. Podcast, and it's really to grant women access to prosperity through real estate, and I love it. I love it. So
now there's a second aspect that I discuss on that podcast, and it comes as a result of the biggest challenge that I've had in my life, which is my health challenge in 2011 and that period of burnout. Right. And so I am bringing some of that as well, because. Why make all this money and work on the outer stuff if you're not going to be looking at the inner stuff as well, and just like there's time for hustle, there's also time for rejuvenation, for pauses, for silence, for reflection. And I definitely want women that start investing to not forget about that as well. I mean, heck, men should probably listen to that part too.
And let me say this. And I was talking to my coaching students about this yesterday. And that is, women, they need to, a feminine woman needs to be able to relax into her being and like you say, get back in the flow, reconnect with herself through meditation, through, peace. And so I love the fact that you're going to incorporate that in the show as well. That's so critical. So absolutely critical. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, it's been a treat, and really, really enjoyed this conversation with you. And I know you're going to knock it out of the park with that podcast. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Rod, for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments. For more resources or to connect with us further, please visit our website at rodkhleif.com. Tune in next week for our next show.